All right, so it's your old pal, Mr. Cook. We're going to go through 5.2, the section on sequences. So the previous one, we just had patterns, and we had to describe them and find the next terms. So for this one, they give us equations to find the numbers in the sequence. They start us off by asking us to do the stuff that we did in 5.1, so just for a little bit of practice, let's do some of those. So to get from negative 32 to negative 16, negative 16 to negative 8, negative 8 to negative 4, we just keep dividing by 2. So that's the pattern, divide by 2 each time. So if I divide negative 2 by 2, I get negative 1. Divide that by 2, I get negative 1/2. Divide that by 2, I get negative 1/4. All right, next, let's see what we do here. So from 6 to 12, 12 to 72, we multiply by 6 each time. And then we're changing the signs, so we also were multiplying by negative 6. So multiply by negative 6. So let's continue on the pattern. 2592 times negative 6. Negative 15552 times negative 6. 93312 times negative 6. Negative 559872. All right, and then let's see this pattern. So negative 6 to negative 2, we are adding 4. Negative 2 to 0, we're adding 2. 0 to 1, we're adding 1. 1 to 1.5, we're adding 1/2. So it looks like we're adding half as much each time. Adding half as much. So the next number, half of 1/2 is 1/4, so we're adding on 1/4. So let's see what that is on our calculator. 3/2 plus 1/4. So 1.75. Now add on half of 1/4, which is 1/8. So plus 1/8. I get 1.875. And then add on half of 1/8, which is 1/16, so plus 1/16. And I get 1.9375. Okay, moving on. So find the the first 4 terms of each sequence. So what this means is I just plug in, because we have this explicit form. Explicit forms are really helpful because all you need to do to find the sequence number is just plug in the term number. So to find the first term, I plug in 1. So plugging in 1 to the formula, I get 13 plus 3 times 1. So 13 plus 3, which is 16. That's the first term. To find the second term, you plug in 2. So 13 plus 3 times 2. So 13 plus 6, which is 19. All right. So now let's find the third term. So I plug in 3. 13 plus 3 times 3 equals 13 plus 9, which is 22. Notice we just keep adding 3. So that's the pattern. So if I add 3 more, I get 25. And then, just throw in a couple more, 28, 31, 34, etc. That's the pattern. All right, let's see if we can develop a pattern here as well. So the first term, I plug in 1. So if I plug in 1, I get 2 times 1 squared. So 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. So 4 is my first number. Now let's get our second number in the sequence. So I plug in 2. 2 times 2 squared, so it's 4 squared, which is 16. Now let's plug in our third number for the third term. So 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So 6 squared is 36. So 36. I don't really see a pattern yet. It's like add 12, add 18, no, 20. Yeah, it's not really helping me out much. So I'm just going to plug in 4 to get the next number because I haven't developed the pattern yet. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 squared is 64. Oh, it looks like it's, okay, so 2 squared, 4 squared, 6 squared, 8 squared. It's all evens squared. So the next one would be 10 squared, so that's 100. And 12 squared, 144. 14 squared, 196, and so on. All right, keep going. Let's do these patterns. So let's find the first term. So we plug in 1 for n. So 16 over 1 plus 2 is 16 over 3. And that's as much as you can do. You can't reduce that any further. So that's the fraction that you get, 16 over 3. Let's get the second term. So we plug in 2 for n. 16 over 2 plus 2. So 16 over 4, which is just 4. Plug in 3 for the third term, so 16 over 3 plus 2. So 16 over 5, and you can't do anything beyond that, so 16 over 5. Now let's plug in 4 for the fourth number, because I haven't really seen a pattern yet. 4 plus 2, so 16 over 6, and that reduces down to 8 over 3. Yeah, I don't really know what the pattern is here, so I'm just going to leave my 4 terms, and that's it, because that's all that they needed, those first 4 terms. All right, keep going. Now we have a recursive rule. What a recursive rule does is it tells you the first number, so -4 is the first number in our sequence, first number, and then it tells us what to do to get to the next number. This is the next number. What we do is we take the previous number and multiply it by 2. So to get the next number, I take the previous number and multiply by 2. So -4 times 2 is -8. To get to the next number, I take the previous number, -8, and multiply by 2, -16. To get to the next number, I take the previous number and multiply by 2. So that's -32, and so on. So we just keep multiplying by 2 to get to the next one. -64, -128, -256, and so on. All right, reading this recursive rule, here's my first term, -1. And what this says is, to get to the next term, I take the previous term and add on n. N is the term number. So I'm on term number 2. So I take the previous number and add 2. So previous number, -1, plus 2 is 1. Now to get to the third term, I take the previous number, which is 1, and add on 3's. So I'm finding the third term. 1 plus 3 is 4. To get to the next term, the fourth term, I take the last number and add on the 4, number 4 for the fourth term. So 4 plus 4 is 8. To get to the next number, I take this number and add on 5, because it's going to be the fifth term. 8 plus 5 is 13, and so on. All right, next recursive rule. First term is -1. To get to the next number, I take the previous number and multiply by 5. So times 5 gives me -5. Next number, times 5 gives me -25. Times 5 gives me -125. Times 5 gives me -625, and so on. So that's recursive rules. These ones are so easy. If you need to find the 10th term, if it's an explicit rule like these where it says an equals something in terms of just n, not this an minus 1 stuff, all you got to do is plug in 10. So for the 10th term, plug in 10 for n. So -58 plus 30 times 10. Even if it was like find the 30th term, you plug in 30. If it was find the 1,010,052nd term, plug in 1,010,052. Just plug in whatever term number you're looking for. So 300 minus 58 is 242. Yeah, so 242 is your answer. And remember, you can do that on your calculator also. I should be doing that. -58 plus 30 times 10, 242. There we go. So to find the 10th term here, I plug in 10 for n. So I get 4 to the 10 minus 1, which is 4 to the 9th. So let's see what that is on our calculator. 4 to the 9th, big number, 262,144. To find the 10th number here, I plug in 10. So I get 10 to the 3rd over 2 to the 10th. That's all calculator work for me. 10 to the 3rd is 1,000. 2 to the 10th, is whatever 32 squared is. So 1,024. And then you can reduce that further, because I know these are both at least divisible by 4, so that'd be 25 over, and then what's 1024? Should it be 64 divided by 4? Oh, 256. Dang, it was off by a factor of 4. And you can't reduce that any further. That's as far as it'll reduce. So there's your answer. Okay, so that's the section on sequences, reading sequences. If you need more help, just make sure to reach out to your teacher. All right, that's it. Now we'll move on to 5.3.